where diverse faces tell of the hardships they overcame in life and how we all suffer and persevere, united by shared resilience. We celebrate and capture those that are brave enough to share their personal and unique stories of life experience that weave a tapestry of hope.
When I think about growing up, and when I think about all the things that happened during when I was growing up in Chicago was probably one of the happiest times growing up. It was tough times, but I grew up in Chicago in the 50s and early 60s. And there was just so many things that we did. I had, 50 some cousins. I had one brother, Mark, and we used to go so many places as a kid. My dad and mom would take us at Christmas to see the lights and go downtown. And there was a Maxwell Street where you did a lot of shopping and the food. We were eating out all the time, so much Italian food. But growing up in Chicago, I guess it was not only a different time in America where I just felt safe and more free. And I didn't grow up in a great neighborhood, but I still always felt safe and didn't have any problems with it at all. You know, as time went by, we moved out to a suburb, and it was just really the end of the city as compared to Taylor Street, which we were at. And when I got out to the suburbs, it was a little bit different, a little hard to change because I really didn't have my cousins close or all my aunts and uncles. I had six uncles and 6 aunts, and my grandma was still alive. And I just remember Sundays having dinner there, or holidays and birthdays. Just growing up with so many people. That's probably one of the biggest things I miss now, and I miss in Vegas, is the camaraderie of going to somebody's house on Sundays for dinner, or they coming by us, or going by grandma's house. And my grandma was the greatest cook, just like everybody's Italian grandma was. Her meatballs would have died for her. At Easter time, she made Italian cookies with the egg in it, and every kid got one. And her pasta fazool was, all of her food was just, everybody came from all over the neighborhood to go to grandma's house. And that was one of the happy times. And my parents got divorced, and I stayed with my mom and my brother. But most of the time, I went to high school, and I had a very, very good high school. I loved going to high school. I could never understand why somebody did not want to go to high school. I don't know if it was just my high school, but I went to Revis High School in Chicago, just outside of Chicago. You know, I played just about every sport I could. And there was a few bad times there. I was a wrestler, and at the end of the wrestling season, I contracted rheumatic fever. And like I said, I don't think they really knew what to do, but I got sent to a sanitarium in Chicago. And that was probably one of the saddest times in my life. But I think being young like that, I really got over it. When I got out, I was just on a mission. I couldn't do anything for a year. I couldn't do anything till my senior year. And then I got cleared to play football. And we played football. I ended up being all-state of Illinois. Was awarded in a banquet downtown at the Tribune, Chicago Tribune put it all on. Gale Sayers was there. He shook my hand and gave me this plaque, and he signed my award. It was a written award. It was Illinois, All-State Illinois, and he signed it, "Good luck, Mike, Gale Sayers." And it was like, damn, you know, it kind of erased everything I went through for a year, you know, because I really couldn't do anything. After that, I played a little ball in junior college, which was a famous junior college that had gone to the junior college bowl and got injured and blew out a knee. And that was just kind of ended, and it was time to move on. So when I kind of the football career left, it came that, I'll never forget it, because that January, I went with a friend. He wanted to go look at a college. And I said, listen, I want to go look at Western Illinois. It was just an old campus, just a great old school campus. It was like something out of Massachusetts or something like that. It was just quite little college. And I went there and I loved it. And I was going to go there. As we're coming home, it's so funny. We got caught in a snowstorm that we were stuck, completely stuck. It was like blinding, and I couldn't get out of there. So when I finally got home, I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this cold anymore. I was just getting old. When I was in junior college, there was a famous professor there who did great books of the Western world. And the waiting list to get in this guy to get his class was phenomenal. But he only had one class at 7 o'clock in the morning. And in Chicago in the wintertime, at 7 in the morning, when you had to drive 45 minutes to get there, and you got to get up a half hour before and thaw out your car, it was tough. It really was. So I was coming home, and California Dreamin' came on. California Dreamin' came on, and I said, I'm done. I'm completely done. I'm not doing this anymore. So I went home and I told him, I had an uncle who lived here in Las Vegas. And I told my uncle, I said, Dad, call him, Uncle Chris, I don't want to do this anymore. I can't, I want out of here. So we called up my Uncle Chris, and we were on spring break. So I came out here, I stayed out here for about 4 days, and it was like, it's March, and I get here, and people got sweaters, and it's like 68, 70, and I'm saying, where's the pool? I'm walking around the old Flamingo Hotel, and I was looking for Elvis Presley because I loved that movie with Aunt Margaret, Viva Las Vegas. I'm looking for stars around. I was spellbound by Vegas. So I stayed with my uncle. And he took me around. He was in the business. And when I got home, I said, I'm leaving. As soon as school let out, and I got accepted at UNLV, which was Nevada Southern at the time. It wasn't UNLV. And I went to school there. I went to school there for about a year and didn't graduate. But my uncle got me into gaming, and I literally loved gaming. There was times I disliked it, but almost all the time that I've been in gaming, I enjoyed it. I loved the people, I loved the customers, and the people coming in and out. But when I left Chicago, I came out here, became a dealer. I worked at the Fremont. I worked there for a short time. As a matter of fact, people wouldn't. This couldn't happen now, but I went to work there, and my uncle worked there, and it was payday, and I had worked maybe a week, and I said, "No, there's no check for me." He said, "What do you think, we're going to pay you?" And I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "We're breaking you in. You just worked for a week for nothing. We're not going to pay you." And I says, "What? I didn't get no tips. I got nothing." Right? He says, "Yeah." He says, "We're going to start you next week. You're going to get full pay and half toes." And I said, "You're kidding me." And I got mad. I said, "You know what? I'm going to call up Grandma. I'm going to tell her what you just did to me." And he just laughed. I would never call my grandma, but it was just a real funny situation. And it really went that way.
Funny feels good.
I worked there for almost 9 months, and he had wanted me to become a floorman, and I didn't want to be a floorman. I was only 21 years old, just getting ready to turn 22. I was living the life like nobody ever believed, I left Vegas. Most of my cousins are still there, and they never left the block. They never went anywhere. and I'm the one who left to come to Vegas. I mean, I was like a god to everybody back home. You know, they never left. There's, like I say, most of them are still there, living in the same neighborhood, doing the same job. But yeah, coming out here was a big thing. So I dealt for 8 or 9 months, and I went on the strip looking for a job because he wanted me to be a floor man. And I said, I want to be a floor man. I want to deal on the strip. That's like the ultimate, is to deal in a big casino on the Las Vegas Strip. So I went to the Flamingo. He got me in the Flamingo. And there was a guy there at the Flamingo that, you have to know, at that time, there was maybe 70,000, 80,000 people in the whole valley. So I'm working at the Flamingo. And the guy who ran all the 21 hated my uncle. But I got hired by someone way above him. So he kind of made my life miserable. So one day, as I come in, he says, "You're fired. Go get your coat and get the hell out of here." And he says, I said, "Wait a minute, I'm just coming to work." Now, I'm 22 years old. I was kind of a smart ass. And I said, "You can't fire me." He says, "Security, take him out." Now, I'm in a dealer's, and parked out the back. I went home, I called my uncle. He says, "That son of a bitch." I says, "Why does this guy hate me?" He says, "He don't hate you, he hates me." I says, "Why? Why does he hate you?" He said, "Because I hustled him out of $5,000 on a golf course." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah, go back to work." So I went back to work the next day, and I got full pay and full toast. It was about a month later. He fired me again. So then the guy who ran the whole place was Mo Miller, and he called me in the office. He said, "Listen, I really need this guy. I can get you a job at any other casino in town. You can walk in tomorrow." He says, "We got to let you go." And I said, "I don't really care." I mean, I didn't. I'm 22 years old and didn't really care. I knew something would come. And so it was then I didn't work for a couple months. I was just having a good time, running around, chasing, gambling, just having a great time. So my uncle went to the Riviera Hotel and ran the baccarat there. So he called me and he says, "You want to come to work down here?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "You're going to deal 21. I says, "Okay." It's another true great story. I get to the Riviera, and Tony Fabiola was there. He was an old-time guy. He was really not a bad guy, but he was really tough. So I go in, and there was no HR. You just walk in the thing, and they give you a W-2 to fill out, and you come on back. And that was the whole process of being hired back then. So he says, "Yeah, be back here. You start at 8 o'clock. Be back here like 20 to 8. I got to get you an apron and a tie." I said, "Okay." I walked in, and I went into the pit, and I said, "I need my apron and tie." And he gives me a look. He says, "Kid, you don't work here. You're fired." I says, "I ain't even started. And who the hell are you to fire me?" And he says, "Listen, the big boss got in a fight with your uncle. And he walked through the pit, and he saw your application. So he tore it up, threw it on the floor, and said, 'Don't pick that up till he comes in and sees it.'" So I says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "You're not working, kid." And he said, "I want you to get the hell out of here so I can clean this mess up." And I called my uncle. I says, "What the hell did you do?" He said, "That bastard, he don't know what he's doing." And he was one of the biggest bad guys around. And he ran the Riviera at that time. So anyway, I stayed out of work for a while. And 2 weeks later, my uncle left there, and they were having trouble at the Sands. So he went in and took over the baccarat at the Sands. The guy who ran the Sands said, he called me. And I didn't take anything, I never took a lot of things serious. So he called me up at home, and he said, "This is Mr. Goodhart." He ran, yeah, it was Mr. Goodhart. He ran the Sands. He said, I want you to come to work. Now, at the time, the Sands was the biggest place in town. It was Caesars and the Sands. I mean, made a lot of money. Everybody was happy. And I told him, I said, no, I don't think I want to come to work yet. I said, I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks. My uncle called me 10 seconds later. He called me every single name in the book and said, you son of a, do you know how big this job is? He said, I want you to call back Mr. Goodhart and you're taking the job and you'll start whenever he wants you to. He said, all right. Because I was going out with a girl in LA. I was going to drive to LA for a couple of weeks. There I was 2 days later working at the Sands. I met her. I was having a nose job done at the time, and she was the nurse at the doctor's office. And we really kind of hit it off. It was really a good relationship when we first met. And we had 3 daughters right away. My first daughter, and then it was 15 months later, my second daughter, and then 12 months later, my other daughter. My wife was right. You know, she wanted me to get out of gaming and get into something else. So that's when I said I wanted to try being a stockbroker. So I went to California, went to school, stayed in California for a while. My wife's kids were here, and broke in over there. And then I came back in here and I worked for a company here. And that lasted maybe 3 or 4 years. And I switched to a couple other companies for a while, and then went to when the Mirage opened. And that was another greatest time in my life, is working at the Mirage. I worked there maybe 6 or 8 months, and I got promoted to a host. They asked me to be a host. And I was a host there for 13 years. And that was probably just a really great time for me. I mean, the people I met, and astronomical amount of great people in this country that I met. You know, very affluent, very successful, and I really learned a lot from them. Not only helping them, you know, I would pick them up at the airport, bring them back, make sure they were checked in, that kind of thing. Those are the kind of people I took care of. Shaquille O'Neal was one of my customers. I've got pictures of Shaquille and my kid. You know, he loved when they came down, and he was just a young kid too. He was just really a young kid. Dan Marino, whenever I had Dan Marino, his son Mike was autistic, and he used to love to steal my Coke when we would sit by him, and I would just laugh, and I would say, who stole my Coke? I got to get another Coke. And he would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And the people I played golf with, everybody from Dick Butkus to just name a star, you know. And then the Paris opened up, the Paris Hotel. And I knew somebody there, and they asked me to come. And I said, listen, I'll come, but I just want to be a floorman. And I said, I got to have weekends off. So they said, okay. So I worked swing, had weekends off, and I stayed there. That was another very good job at the time when it first opened up. I don't know what it's like, you know, now. And then when the Wynn opened up, and they asked me to come to the Wynn. So I went to the Wynn and stayed there until I retired. It was really some great times. It was to retire. I didn't want to retire. But also the toughest choice was the divorce. We were together 26 years. And that was a hard situation. I don't know how much of a choice it was. But I stayed together the last years because of the kids. I was always afraid of losing the kids, so we had made a point of staying together. But the retiring was tough, as I heard all the stories about once you retire, you know, your life changes, you don't know what to do, you know. And my kids were all grown up and they were gone. It was only about 5 months after I retired that nobody knows how this happened, and I was in a very healthy person. I ended up sitting here on the couch and couldn't breathe, and I had called my daughter, and it's still teary-eyed now. But I had called my daughter and I said, man, something's wrong. I can't breathe. And the day before, I was at the gym, walked the dog, everything was fine. So my daughter came over and she said, "Dad, you look terrible." I said, "Well, let's see if this blows over." And it didn't. I got worse and worse and worse, to where they took me away in an ambulance. So that was one of the toughest times. They took me away in an ambulance. And waking up and seeing my daughter from Oregon, and I said, "What are you doing here?" And then the next day, my daughter from Switzerland came in. So I said, "What the hell happened to me? You know, what are you talking about?" My ex was a nurse, and she found out through ways when I was at the hospital that I wasn't supposed to make it. I had, my lungs were so full of blood clots that I was rushed in, and I don't remember everything because I went out in the ambulance. I really don't even remember the stuff except waking up with this gigantic thing on my chest, and they were going through my groin to try to get some of them out, you know. And that took a year, and that really changed my life. That changed my life completely. A little more appreciation for things that you had. Honestly, when I woke up and when you wake up, it was a tough situation because I didn't know what happened to me. I didn't know what happened to me. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, "What the hell happened?" You know, I mean, I had an inclination when I went in, because I think when I was out, they said, you know, he's got blood clots. And then when I woke up, and they had this big machine on top of my chest, and I said, but I think when I woke up and my 3 daughters were there, I was really scared. And I was like 3 or 4 days in intensive care, but I think the day after all, I got through of everything. My attitude was completely different. You know, my attitude was like, I mean, I wanted to get up walking around. They wouldn't let me. You know, I said, "Listen, man, somebody go get me a milkshake." My attitude was, "I'm out of here. I'm fine. I'm going home, going to the gym." I didn't have any why me type things. I never really think I'd been like that. So I said, "Well, I got to get up. I got to get over this." I mean, you know, someone asked, "When can I go back to the gym?" They said, "You're going home with oxygen. You're going to be on oxygens for the next 3 or 4 months, and you can't get out of bed." I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Dude, you don't know if your heart's going to be okay from the blood clots, if there was damage. We don't know if there's any kind of damage yet. You still got a lot of tests to see if you're still going to make it." "You're nuts. You guys are crazy. Get me dressed and I'm going home." But I couldn't breathe. I had the whatever. So I came home with oxygen and portable oxygen maker and tanks and portable ones if I had to go to the doctor. And that was a good 4 months. It was a good 4 months. But during the whole time, my daughters were really inspirational. They were really great with it. Although my one daughter, Macy, had to go back. She was a teacher. But Mally and Mia were here and really took care of me. I know I would tell anybody that, you know, life doesn't wait for anybody. And every minute that you lose, you know, is really time lost. You know, and when you've got something really bothering you, I mean, something that you can't overcome, that you don't have that best friend to talk to, or you don't, you know, have that wife to talk to, or, you know, even a child that understands what you're going through, you know, an older child, you know, you've got to get help. You've got to talk to somebody, because you let that stay in there, it'll eat you up. and you can't let anything eat you up. You can't let anything stop you. I'd like to own a Ferrari, and I'd like to drive a Formula One car, which there is a couple of tracks in Europe where you can go and rent older Formula Ones and go around the track with. But yeah, that's what. And I'd love to live in Monte Carlo, which I don't think that's going to happen either. But you got to just get up and do it again. A lot of times marriages, slow people down after the divorce, and they just can't get over it. And that's probably one of the most, for a man, I don't know how it is for a woman, but I know for a man, it can destroy a lot of men. Same with women. I'm not singling out men, but it can be very painful. Losing a job can be painful, but man, you just gotta go. You just gotta move on. In my head, I just know I've got one more great adventure. At least one more great adventure. I just want to take those little jaunts and see a lot of the world. I love Formula One, and I travel to a lot of Formula Ones. England, Spain, Monte Carlo. But I'm not slowing down at all. I'm still got things that are things I can't do, and things that I shouldn't do, but I'm still going to do them. No, I don't let anything stop anybody from what they want to do. Just charge up. Everybody can say how sad they feel for you. Oh, geez, that's great. I don't know how you do it. But when the smoke clears and they go away, you're on your own. You're on your own. So you got to get moving. My name is Mike, and this is my story.